Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a book that completely changed the way we talk about money and inequality, Thomas Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century.
Okay, let's get right into it with the single most important and probably most controversial idea in the entire book. It's this simple little formula, R is greater than G. I know, it looks almost too simple, doesn't it? But Piketty argues that this is the central engine of inequality.
So the big question he poses is this. What if this isn't just some random economic observation? What if it's the fundamental code of capitalism, a dynamic that has shaped our past and is pretty much set to define our future? So, what does it actually mean?
To really get a handle on the power of this idea, we got to break down what R and G really stand for.
So on one side, you've got R. That's the rate of return on capital. Think of it as the speed at which existing wealth, money, property, stocks, grows all by itself. It's the profits, the dividends, the rent checks. Then you have G. That's the growth of the actual economy, new income, new output, basically from people working and making things. So R is how fast existing money makes more money, while G is how fast the whole economic pie is getting bigger for everybody else.
Now that brings up a good question. When we say capital in this equation, what are we really talking about? It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but Piketty is super specific about it.
For him, capital has nothing to do with your skills or your education, what some people call human capital. Nope. It is strictly the stuff you can own and sell, the non-human assets.
We're talking about things like real estate, buildings, land, financial capital, stocks, bonds, and even professional capital, factories, machinery, patents. Basically, it's all the accumulated wealth in a society that isn't a person.
So what Piketty did, which was pretty groundbreaking, was to dig through centuries of data. And what he found was that the importance of all this capital in our economy has followed this really dramatic and kind of weird historical path. It definitely hasn't been a straight line.
Just look at this graph. What you see is this incredible U-shape. Back in 1910, private capital in Europe was massive, worth something like 6 or 7 times the entire national income. That's a society just dominated by old wealth. Then, by 1950, it absolutely craters. But here's the kicker. Since then, it's made this huge comeback, climbing right back up to those pre-war highs.
And this is a really crucial point. That big dip in the middle, that wasn't some natural economic cycle. It was because of the 2 world wars. These were violent, catastrophic events that literally destroyed vast fortunes, which had the side effect of reducing inequality for a while. It created this illusion, as Piketty calls it, that maybe we were moving past these old capital-dominated societies for good.
And what this shows us is so fascinating. While the amount of capital has shot back up to historic levels, what that capital is has totally changed. Back in the day, capital mostly meant land, like farmland. Today, it's overwhelmingly real estate, stocks, and other financial assets. The beast is back, it just looks a little different.
Okay, so let's tie this all back to our main formula. Why is this relationship between R and G the absolute key to understanding, everything?
This graph right here, this is the smoking gun of the entire book. That top line, that's R, the return on capital. And look at it, it just chugs along, consistently hovering around 4 or 5% for most of modern history. Now look at the line below it, that's G, economic growth. It's almost always much, much lower. The only time they even came close was that one exceptional period in the mid-20th century, right after the world wars had wiped the slate clean, so to speak.
And Piketty's conclusion from all this data is pretty stark. He says that when R is greater than G, capitalism as a system automatically generates ever-widening inequality. The wealth that's already there just grows faster than the new wealth being created by work and production. It's not a flaw in the system. He argues it's a fundamental feature.
And this is why it matters so much. It fundamentally challenges our whole idea of meritocracy. See, in a world where G is bigger than R, what you earn from your job can actually outpace old money. That's a world where hard work could, in theory, let you get ahead. But in a world where R is bigger than G, which has been the historical norm, the past basically eats the future. Inherited wealth just naturally grows faster than wages.
So, what does all this mean for us, right now, in the 21st century? Where is this trend headed?
Well, Piketty's forecast is pretty sobering. He argues that as our population growth and economic growth, our G, naturally slow down this century, the power of R is just going to become even more pronounced.
That gap between the two is likely to get wider, potentially pushing inequality to levels we haven't seen since the Gilded Age.
And this brings us to the book's final, profound question. Piketty does offer a solution, a coordinated global tax on capital, to try and rein in this dynamic. But whether that's even possible raises an even bigger question for all of us. Can our democracies peacefully choose to regulate this powerful force? Or is the dynamic of R being greater than G so fundamental that it can only be reset by a major catastrophe? That's the challenge he leaves us with.